Hi, this is Wendy Laidlaw here from Heal Endometriosis Naturally. I am joined today with Joanna, which is very exciting. Very exciting. Exciting. Hi, Joanna.
Hi, Wendy.
Are you good today?
I'm doing really well today. Thank you.
Well, thank you so much for agreeing to be interviewed with me today. I know everyone that first comes on and wants to be interviewed it's a bit nerve-wracking. It's kind of like, what questions is she going to ask me? But I was particularly excited about interviewing you today because you're coming to the end of the foundation program. You've had stage 4 endometriosis, you've had cysts, you've had adhesions, you've had everything. And I think people would be really interested in your stories. So I thought maybe you could just give a little bit of background. I know you read my book and then that led you to the foundation program, but perhaps you could sort of tell a little bit more about kind of where did you see information about the book, what you got from the book, and then we can get more information from you then.
Okay. Sorry, and I'm kind of fighting a little bit of getting over a cold, so if my voice goes on you, that's what it is. So, I didn't know that I had endometriosis. And about last year, June, I started getting a lot of pain. I've always had painful periods. My period started when I was like 13, and I had to leave school the day it started. I was in so much pain. And it's been like that forever. It's always been taking time off work and leaving a college class in the middle of a session because your pain was so intense, and crying all the way home because your legs were going numb. And I always thought that was normal. I had no reason to question that was not normal to feel like that during a period. More so because my sister was like that, my cousins were like that, it ran in the family. So I don't tend to talk to other girls about, how do you feel when you have your period? So I based it on the people around me and just went on with life. And it actually started getting worse as I got older, but more so last year. I would have the week before my period, my insides would start to feel like they were on fire and very sore, like somebody kicked me or punched me in the gut. And then I would get my period, and it would last 8 days and be horrifically, heavy, and you'd be so sick. And then the whole week after, up to 2 weeks after sometimes, I would be again with this super sore gut. And that was completely new. It was a whole new phase for me. Yeah. And I would get maybe 4 good days, and then the next period would start. So it became pretty cumbersome to deal with that. So it started affecting work, and it started affecting life because I would go to work and I would start to get this sore feeling, and it would always start near my ovary, but I always thought it was my appendix. That was something's wrong. It's got to be my appendix because, like I said, I never thought it would be my reproductive system acting up. So I work in the school district. I work with kids, so I'm always on my feet, very active. I'm a very energetic person, so I like to participate with the kids. And last year, May, I started with this extra pain, and I couldn't function with the kids. I would miss about 3 days a week of work. That would be going in and begging the principal, can I please go home? I can't even carry my own weight right now. I'm in pain. So eventually I had to make the call and put my notice in because I wasn't reliable anymore in my job, and started doing test after test, seeing doctor after doctor, and every test was coming back. There's absolutely nothing wrong with you. Your imaging looks perfect. The ultrasounds, CT scans, x-rays, everything is great. And I was doing like 2 CT scans a month because you do it, you'd go home, the pain would intensify, you end up back at the urgent care and another CT scan. Eventually, they started calling me an enigma, saying, there's nothing wrong, it's all in your head, you're saying there's this pain, but we're not seeing what you're saying. So that went on from early June last year until September. I had the gynecologist finally say, well, I don't even think it's gynecological. I'm going to send you to a GI. I think it's in your gut. And the reason was I was experiencing a ton of gut pain every time I had my period. That bruising was all in my gut. So of course I went, and the GI wants to do colonoscopy. So, okay. So we prepped for that, which is, by the way, horrible. The prep for that. I mean, you're already not feeling well, and then they put you through this 10-day prep regimen, and then, you know, you go in for the procedure. And that came back, nothing's wrong. Because internally, they couldn't see anything wrong. Yeah. I ended up having a very close friend of mine through church that had just gone through hysterectomy. And when she was able to come back to church, everyone was kind of hearing that, you know, something's wrong with Joanna. She's not well. You know, we're praying for her, but she didn't quite know what was going on. And so she sat down with me and she said, you know, do you mind telling me what are your symptoms? You know, what are you really feeling? And so I started telling her about the pain, that my legs would go numb, my back would hurt, the intestines were always sore, and the ovaries and the periods were horrible. And her first reaction was, have you ever asked about endometriosis? Because that's what she had. She had stage 4 and unfortunately did not know about things like this. So she did. She's one of the ones that ended up getting a hysterectomy from it all. But I had never thought about it. I grew up in Canada and would go to the doctor and tell them about the period, and endometriosis never came up. It was never a word we would hear about. So I never had reason to think about it. And so I said I would go to the gynecologist again and ask to see if you could check for endometriosis. And apparently there's no test, you have to get a surgery. Well, I had to go to 3 different doctors to convince them to do a surgery. I mean, it's not like everybody goes in asking, can you cut me open? I want you to see what's going on. And finally, I kind of had to lie. It wasn't a full lie, but I had to then think back about my family history and say, well, I don't know if it's endometriosis, but my grandmother had severe pain, and my mom had this, and my sister has this, and fibroids run in the family. And as soon as that came up, then he goes, okay, I don't think it's what you have, but I'm willing to go in. Yeah. So I had a laparoscopic booked a month after the colonoscopy for endometriosis diagnostic. And that was in November of 2016. And when he went in, I remember coming out of the anesthesia, and, you know, they say you're not going to remember what we tell you. And I remember everything he told me. And, you know, he came and he sat down and he goes, well, I have good news and I have bad news. And he said, the good news is you were right. We found endometriosis. He said, the bad news is by the time, you know, we've done this surgery, it's so far gone that there was nothing we could do about it. He said, I was able to burn off a bit on your ovaries, but it's all over your intestines, and we can't touch your intestines. Which, I mean, I'm glad they did not try to cut my intestines, but
I'm glad too. Yes.
But it was really, I just remember crying. It was so overwhelming to hear that you had this. Sorry, I'm gonna cry now. It's really overwhelming to hear that you have a disease that they could have done something about, but they refuse to help you. And that's kind of like how the medical system is. But yeah, so I mean, I had these pictures, and I just remember going home and staring at these pictures of my gut was black, covered with just these black blood things. I mean, I can't describe it. It just looks like you're invaded with something. Yeah. It wasn't just a little bit. So of course it was overwhelming. And to know, coming out of it, to know that you have to live with this pain now, because that's their theory. So I didn't take very well to the surgery, and I don't do well on the drugs. So I was very sick from that. And 2 weeks later, he had me come back in to go over things in more detail. And the first thing he wanted to push was Lupron. I have a friend who has breast cancer, and she was on Lupron. And, I told him, I said, this is what you guys give cancer patients. He goes, yes, it's a very, very strong drug. But in your case, this is what you need to go on. And he started describing the side effects. And it was like, if I take this, you're telling me the pain might get better, but I'm going to have all these other symptoms that sound terrible.
Yeah.
And it was, you're going through menopause, you might throw up, you're going to gain weight or lose, all these things. And I got scared. And I think it was really good that I got scared, or else I would have taken it. I've always just done what the doctors tell me because they're doctors and they are supposed to know better and they're supposed to be there to help us.
Yeah.
So I had told him, and kind of just based back on my friend, she was taking a very natural route. And so I told him that day that I wanted to hold off on the Lupron if I could and seek alternative medicine. And the moment I said that, he wrote me off. And he literally said, if that's what you're going to do, then I can't work with you anymore. That those are not doctors. They have no medical education like we do, and we do not consider them to be actual doctors. And so I said, okay. There was nothing I could do. So I was actually shocked that that was his response. So basically, if you don't want my drugs, that's it. So I went home and very upset. My husband sat down with me and he said, well, you want to do the alternative medicine. We hadn't found a naturopath yet, but I started doing research online. And I just typed in healing endometriosis naturally, and lo and behold, one of the first things that popped up was your book. And at the time, I was too cheap to buy it. So I had, we didn't have Kindle, so I said, ooh, if I get Kindle, I can get a free 30-day trial and download the book. And I, despite having been a teacher and now being a substitute teacher, I'm not big on I really have to be interested in a book to sit there and read the whole book. And I started reading your book and I couldn't put it down. I literally read it in a day. It was like I was reading my own story. And I had not, everything I had found online, there was all this, do this, do this, do this, but there was nobody that really made me feel like this is what I went through, this is how I'm feeling, and this is what worked for me. And I was skeptical because I've never believed in taking a natural route. I really have always been a Western medicine type of person. But the book just seemed like it just really spoke to me and really just opened my eyes to the possibility that, wow, if this is true, there's a chance that I can fix things without having to go the route of, the medical route. And so we started going through it, and I saw you had the cookbook. So I had also downloaded that. I ended up buying both because I actually read it about 3 or 4 times, your book, because I'd always go back through and highlighting things and making note of what I could do. So I decided to try to follow the book to see if I could fix myself through that way. I actually had not seen that you had the foundation program yet. And so it was very hard. It was not easy to follow in the beginning because you're so used to eating what you want, eating how much you want to eat. I loved bread. I loved fast food. We went out and ate all the time. So for me to see no dairy, no soy, no sugar, it was like, what? Luckily, I have a very loving husband in that he agreed. He said, okay, if we're going to do it, I'll do it with you. So we started slow. And the first thing we took out was the gluten. And it took about, a month to finally get past that. You're always feeling hungry and you're always wanting, something fatty and sugary. But by the end of the month, we were actually able to take away all 4 of those things. And within about, I would say, 8 weeks of starting on my own, following what I was trying my best to on your book, I started getting a lot of relief. And the biggest thing that excited me was the serapeptase. That was the first thing I kind of popped out to me. And I did my own research on it. And I said, it seems like it's okay to take. And so I started taking started with 40,000 for like a week. And I believe I had emailed you. I did not expect you to email me back. And you emailed back and you had told me, you started with 40 and you went up to 80. So I did that. And I was reading in the book about how it can break the adhesions down. And one of the things that had come out of the surgery in November was that we were infertile because endometriosis had completely sealed my tube shut. And the surgeon had come in and said that, if you ever want a chance of having kids, you would have to try IVF. And even that would probably not be successful. That's how bad your tubes are. And that was really hard because what I failed to mention is what actually initially put me into the doctor was we were starting to consider having children. And I had this pain. And they said, before we look at fertility, we got to check this pain out. And that's how it progressed towards what it is now. Yeah. So it was very emotional and really hard to be. I mean, we're in our 30s now. And to hear that, there's maybe no chance. Part of looking up the serapeptase, I came upon a lot of women saying, though, that they had taken it and then they had done a test. It's called the HSG test, where they put a dye in and they check your tubes with this dye through it's like an ultrasound. Yeah. And that most of them that I was reading, they were saying my tubes were opened. And I was super skeptical, and I said, I'm going to try. Wendy's book says 12 weeks on serapeptase, and, good things can happen. And so 12 weeks later, so in about so I'd started January, the serapeptase, and then late February, early March, I want to say it was first week of March, I made an appointment to do an HSG test. And you have to go to a reproductive clinic. It's a whole little process. But knowing my history, the doctors there were pretty skeptical that what they're going to see is maybe it's a little better, but it's probably the same situation. And so I was going in with the same idea. And I remember doing the test, which for me, it was actually pretty painful. I don't know why it hurt, but some women say it doesn't hurt, and other women, it does. It feels like you have this burning liquid going up because they take a balloon and they expand your uterus. So it's not a comfortable test to put yourself through, but it was worth it if it came back positive. And the doctor was in there, and I'm clenching, trying to get through it. And she stopped and she goes, "It looks perfectly fine." She goes, "Your flow is so good." So the dye flows through the tube, and she goes, "Everything is passing through. So your tubes are good." She goes, "There's a little bit of residue from scar damage," but she goes, "It's not blocking anything." And I just remember being so happy. That was one of the best news we had received since, all of this had happened. It was just really good to know that wow, now we have a chance that we can actually have kids. This endometriosis, it can be stopped and things can get better. Yeah. So after that is when I somehow online, I was just happened to be going through stuff online. Your book popped up again, and below it said foundation program. And I don't know how I didn't notice it before. And I clicked on it and realized I could work one-on-one with you. And at that point, your book had helped me so much. I was really excited to be able to have the opportunity to actually work with you because I knew I could get more from just the book. And so I started working with you in, I don't even remember if it was May or June. I think
beginning of June, I think it was, wasn't it? Beginning of June.
Okay. And I probably wouldn't have done it if things had continued to go well. But after the HSG, about a month after, so about end of April, I remember emailing you saying something's wrong.
Yeah.
My pain is coming back, and I'm not quite sure I'm following everything that I'm on, but it's like everything's reversing, like I'm going backwards rather than forwards. And I was seeing a naturopath at the same time because I figured I've gone away from the believing in doctors, but now I'm listening to everything the naturopath is telling me, because how can natural stuff hurt? Unfortunately, my naturopath, so I had done a blood test that tested everything, like all my vitamins, everything, all my hormones. And it came back that my DHEA levels, which is a hormone you produce naturally in your body, were low. So she decided to prescribe me DHEA, which I actually, in the office, asked her, I said, does this have any side effects? And her response was, oh no, you could take, if you take too much, your liver's just gonna detox it and out it goes and whatever. And I was on that, actually I was on that DHA even way before that. I think in January, it was about 4 months I was taking it for. But the effects did not hit me until April. And it was you that mentioned after starting the program, when you looked at what the naturopath had me on, you said, oh my goodness. I just remember you going, you're on DHA, what? And I had never, even though I questioned what the medical doctors were trying to put me on, I never questioned the supplements. And in June, at the beginning of June when we started, you told me you need to stop right away. And I did not know why. So you said you need to look it up. I mean, you told me, and then when I looked it up, I was shocked to find out that DHEA increases your estrogen levels immensely. It is considered a steroid. So for men, it basically takes estrogen and converts it to testosterone, and they use it as a replacement for steroids. But for women, it basically doubles up your estrogen level. And when you have endometriosis, you don't want to be doing that. And I had come across that article I shared with Wendy that there was experiments done on mice, and it showed that they were on DHEA for 15 days. They were put on 6 milligrams, which is a lot for a mouse, but 15 days. I was on 10 to 20 milligrams a day for 4 months. And they all had cysts, massive cysts in their ovaries. And that just hit me. And the reason I'm saying that is about mid-June, the pain got so bad that I ended up having to go into the ER. And they found cysts on my ovaries. Again, I had thought it was my appendix going, but no. So I had a cyst on my right side. One had ruptured and one had not. And it was causing immense pain. I couldn't walk. I couldn't do anything, function. And I remember you telling me, even though you stopped the DHEA, it's still going to be in your system. And so with the fact of me seeing this research article, and now here I am, I've been on this stuff. It's only been 4 months, and I have cysts. I believe that it is what helped to cause that. The gynecologist disagrees, of course. But so that happened, and then it went from you have a cyst to you have a twisted ovary. And then it went from you have a twisted ovary to it could be something else. It could be your appendix covered with endometriosis. So we were back on this endometriosis bandwagon again. And again, the emotions, hit because I was doing so good. I was back to work. I was back to normal life. I was doing my photography. Everything was good. And then I got hit and life just went down. It was really hard. I don't think I've ever cried so much as I've cried in the past 2 months. But so I ended up, because the theory was the ovary was twisting, it was laparoscopic was the answer, I guess, to untwist it in case the ovary was dying. So I did not want to do laparoscopic. I started doing the myofascial massage for a bit, and it would help, but it wouldn't take all the pain away. And so I finally agreed to do the laparoscopic. Well, of course, they go in, and this was just recently, just about 2.5, 3 weeks ago, on the 20th of July. I went in for laparoscopic, and I came out, and the doctor said that, so there's no endometriosis that we can see. She goes, there was like one thing on your uterus and one thing on your bladder, and they're tiny. I mean, they were like peas, like tiny little things. And she goes, I burnt them out, but there's nothing on your intestines at all. And it was just mind-blowing to hear that of, what do you mean there's nothing? There's got to be. They said there's nothing that can be done. I mean, I've been doing this thing with Wendy, but, there's got to be something. And she said, no, there wasn't. And I think that was like one of the best news that we had gotten. It was really, it's still shocking to know that here you were told only a few months back in November that once it hits your gut like that, that's it. I mean, you've got to be on these heavy drugs, and there's nothing we can do. The likelihood it can spread, it can get into your lungs, like they really scare you. Yeah. And now to hear that, it's basically in a remission state, it's going away, was just amazing to hear. So it really just proved, and in a short while, it was January to July, everything cleared up. But I'll show you the pictures. I don't know if you're gonna be able to see them well, but I have, if you can see, I don't know if you can. So that was my ovary in November, completely white, marbleized, and the black dots on it, the stuff he burnt off. I mean, even to see your ovary scalded like that is not enjoyable to look at. And then it's really hard to tell, but this is part of my gut, and it's pretty black. It's got a lot of, it looks like it's black and blue. And I have a couple other pictures I couldn't find, but basically a lot of my gut looked like that. Just purpley black. Gross. So when I went in and I got my new pictures, so let me find it. Just give me 1 second. It's a lot of pictures she took. We wouldn't video record it, so they took a bunch of pictures. But this is the exact same area. So that's my ovary now. It's got a little bit of white, but it is not a marble. It's pink and fleshy and squishy like it should be. And then my gut, the same area of my gut is up here, and it's completely normal. Yeah, so there's nothing on there. It was really amazing to see. And I mean, I can't put it into words. It's just really, really exciting. I can't even find the one now. There's a couple pictures where, oh, here we go. So, I mean, this is not bad. It might look bad, but that was black before, and it's white. And the reason it's white is the endometriosis left, and it kind of left a little shadow of itself. Yeah. And so, I mean, that is scarring, but I know if we continue with the program, that can all go away, because obviously it's gone away on the other parts. So, yeah, it's been really, really good. So, I mean, now I still battle with the results of the adhesions. It's left behind a lot of adhesions. But, I mean, that with the myofascial massage and all that, I know that can be fixed, and I'm still taking my serapeptase. So I'm just like, I'm on this road now to being so close to being back to where I was, which is super exciting.
Well, it's fantastic to hear your story, and I'm so pleased that you're sharing this story, because I know it's been an emotional roller coaster for you, and I've been where you've been, where doctors tell you, oh, there's only one route, and it just feels quite, a hard route to follow with the surgery and the drugs, and there's no way out. And then you take a way out, and you speak to a naturopath, and you think you're doing the right thing, and they don't understand endometriosis. Yeah. So they're giving you something that's feeding endometriosis, because not a lot what naturopaths promote is fantastic, but unless they understand endometriosis and how sensitive it is to phytoestrogens or any other additional estrogens, then you can inflame it so quickly. And of course, that's what happened with urine size, is they inflamed. But equally as well, I do remember you telling me when you went in that your cysts had gone as well.
Yes, yeah, they were. So there was basically my reproductive area looks really good. So no cysts, my appendix was great. The appendix in November was marbleized. It had been attacked at one point, and he didn't remove it because he said he didn't see any growths, but it was all white as well. But she said my appendix looked great, my ovaries looked great, everything looked good except for the 2 little things she found, and they just burn them off or whatever they do. And the gut looked great. So yeah, it was good. I mean, she mentioned the adhesion that she could see, which I kind of expected that would be there. So, but that's a small part of, everything else.
Absolutely. And I know that you were reticent about going for this surgery, but you were in so much pain because of the DHEA had inflamed your insides and caused more adhesions, which, as we've found out, is now partial bowel obstruction as a result of the adhesions. You were almost frightened and scared into having the surgery, weren't you? Which you were reticent, you didn't really want to do. But we've joked about it afterwards, saying, I'm so glad you did, because I have had women say, have you got surgical proof that your program works? And I'm going, well, normally the proof is the reduction and the elimination of pain and symptoms. That's proof enough. Women coming out of bed or having normal periods, and I say normal, like a 1.5-day period, or very light, no clots, no bloating, no period, no period pain, no breast pain, that whole shebang. And then, as I say, you've gone in, and so how does that feel to kind of like see those photographs? Like,
no, I mean, it's good. It was probably, it's weird to be looking at a photograph like that, but it was actually one of like the prettiest pictures I've seen in a while. It was really good. And I've actually even never seen my husband that excited, since we got married because really the doctor didn't even talk to me first. She went to them because I was still coming out of anesthesia. And when he came to see me, my husband, he just had this big smile. He goes, because I was crying partially because of that, but also because we did find there was a little bit of a bowel obstruction because the adhesions had twisted my bowels a bit, but we are working on that. But he goes, I know you're overwhelmed, that there's still this pain in your side a little bit from the bowels, but he goes, it is so exciting. Like, he was so happy to see that. And I think that's a big part of what this program has really helped too, is it's really hard to deal with endometriosis. It's not a disease that people consider a disease unless they have it. It's something that I have even battled to talk to women with about, because I've had a lot of women come to me and say, I have endometriosis and it's not that big of a deal. Why are you making it such a big deal? It does not hurt the way that you're saying. So I think even as women, the education is not there to know that there are different stages, and it really can debilitate a person, because it completely knocked me. I was bedridden for weeks. It really does affect you. So that was hard. So you feel very alone, which what I really loved about the program is not only having you, but you do these conferences, and we get to see there's other women that we're talking to face to face, and it's just so nice. It's really refreshing to have that, but it's also given me the confidence to build a better relationship with my husband, because now we understand what are we really dealing with. It's not just, oh, she's whining again, her period, okay, whatever. And then for him to even notice things like, hey, do you remember that like last year you were having 8-day long periods and it's like 3 days now and you're fine? And after surgery, I was scared because 2 weeks after I would get my next period, I hadn't had one in between. And I actually called the doctor and said, I don't want to do this because I'm on this natural path, but I think I need you to give me some painkillers because when my period comes, it's going to be bad. because I had to stop all the supplements I was on because they had me on a lot of things. And my period came and it was fine. I mean, it hurt a little because I had surgery pain and stuff, but the cramping was like an hour, maybe 2 hours gone. And the period was generally a really good, it lasted 3 or 4 days and that was it. And I was expecting like to be in excruciating pain. So it just goes to show like, it just changes you so much overall. So it's just been so amazing. It's been a really amazing journey.
Well, I remember when you said that you're expecting your periods, and because of all the drugs and the morphine and the anesthetic and stuff, you had really thought like, brace myself, I'm going to be hit with a big thunderbolt of pain. And that in itself is very interesting, isn't it? Because how does that differ from the periods that you used to have before?
Well, they were excruciating. I mean, like I said before, I remember even in high school, you know, having to call my dad to leave work and come and pick me up, and you are using every ounce of your strength to walk out the door because you cannot feel your legs, and you're getting this wave of pain and heat. Like, it was intense. And it was always like that. And to go from that.
I remember your shock when you're like, and my periods came and they wouldn't.
Yeah.
And I think that's really, really wonderful, because again, full credit to you for following the program, following the suggestions, and being consistent and persistent with it. Because even in spite of, I think the surgeon frightening you into having this surgery, which you know you didn't want to have, you know, so much good has come from it, really, in your case, because you've seen your insides, you know, you have physical proof of your insides healing. Yeah. But isn't it interesting, even with everything that's been going on, your periods have improved because you've got such great foundations in there, and you've been removing systematically the inflammatory factors and swapping them out with things that are soothing and healing, so the body's healing naturally. I mean, how does it feel? You know, do you think that doctor 6 months ago would pretty much wrote you off? I mean, if you could speak to him now, what do you think he would say to him?
I don't know if he sees this.
Politely.
No, but you almost want to go and wave the pictures in their face and say, look, I did this all naturally. But you know what? I still feel like, with how stubborn some of the medical system can be, that they could still say, oh, well, that doesn't prove anything, you know?
Yes.
Maybe it wasn't as bad as you think it was anyways in November.
You're right. They would dismiss it, because I did the same when I got better. I went back to my doctor and back to my surgeon and said, you need to share this with other women. Okay. And they dismissed me with the back of their hand as if some sort of, I think you got referred to as an enigma, you know, and I got referred to too. But I think when you understand the body is always wanting to heal itself, and if it's not healing, there's something stopping it. And then you're looking at what's stopping my body from healing. And that to me was my first, you know, when I was lying in bed, bedridden for 3 years, in a morose, dreadful state with all but giving up hope of carrying on. And I got a cut on my finger and I noticed it was healing. And then I started to think, well, if that's healing, why are my insides not healing? Right. And then understanding, as you said earlier, it's an estrogen dominant condition. It's a hormone imbalance. There's lots of inflammation. So if you systematically, and of course, as you say, people do normally need support because you're in pain. You're struggling just to get through the day. And that's where the foundation program came about, because people were emailing me saying, I've read your book, it's great, it's starting to help, but I've hit a wall, or I need more help, or whatever. So what particular aspects do you like? Is there a lot of emotional support, would you say, in the foundation program that you've felt has been beneficial?
I think it's everything. I feel like you're a combination of like a nutritionist, health coach, life coach. It's really helped with my emotions to, like, I mean, you pushed me to start meditation, which I hated doing. And now I really appreciate it. The journaling was horrific. but now I even brought my journal back here. But now it it really helps me emotionally to get my brain wrapped around things. It helps me to have a method of venting, because, I mean, as a woman fighting a disease like this, it can be overwhelming on those around you. And you can get whiny and you can get complaining, and sometimes they need a break. And I saw that it was getting a lot for my husband and my family to handle. And having the journal kind of gives them and kind of gives you that break too, where you're not just complaining out loud. It gave me like an outlet to really put a lot of my thoughts down. And I was starting to even figure more stuff out about how I was feeling and my symptoms and connections between, hey, I wrote I had a really stressful day and my pain level was at like a 9. And it kind of helps you to become that investigator that you spoke about. And then on the other hand, just the nutrition side, I know that I can come to you and say, hey, this got recommended to me. What do you think about it? And just having that person to go back and forth with really makes a difference. I mean, you can do research online, but it does make a difference to have a person to speak to. So yeah, I've loved it for all aspects of what it's done. The friendships it's created, I feel like Susan, who's in the program right now, like, even though I've never met her, it's really enjoyable to be able to sit and talk with her every 2 weeks with you. And so you kind of create a community.
Yes, and as you said, that's so important, because you've said it a couple of times, and I know I felt it. You feel so alone in this disease. I think if someone has cancer, everybody seems to understand what cancer is, and there's a degree of sympathy that people get with that condition. Whereas endometriosis, I know that you had people saying, oh, it's an enigma. You've got such a small cyst. Why is it causing you so much pain? You're almost being called into question. You have to fight to be believed. So for people to come together who are going through, and that's why I start these programs every couple of months, with people coming together, starting at the same point and going through it together, so you don't feel alone. You feel that you're in this, you're all in this together, and that just makes you feel like, you can do this, especially on the bad days, especially on the weeks you just like, I can't be bothered and I really want to give up, because it is a 12-week program and you need to keep going through the program
and it's not easy. I mean, there's a lot in the book about you. Like, Wendy's telling me to keep doing this and I just want to stop. And
of course, but that's where I come in, as I see myself as your coach, as your champion, as, running along beside you saying, come on, you can do this, because I know how hard it is, or was, because I've been there. And that's why I created the program with the different levels of support, to say, you can do this. And I never said it was going to be easy, but it's absolutely worth it to get the results.
It is. As soon as you get that, I mean, it could take 4 or 5 weeks in, but as soon as you get that one little, it just takes a little change in your pain to realize something's changing, or to be able to come off painkillers.
Yes.
I mean, that's a huge thing, because, I mean, they really don't make you feel great, and you don't realize that until you stop taking them. But yeah, I mean, I would encourage any woman who, if you just even have periods that just don't feel right, to question it and get it looked at, and question everything now. I mean, I learned after the naturopath thing that to even question the supplements. And I even find every time I Google, a recipe or a supplement or something, I always put endometriosis at the end now of my search to see, does it flare up estrogen? Does it, what does it do? Is it a phytoestrogen? Is it a xenoestrogen? And you kind of start.
And do you find now that, because you've got the educational webinars through the program on the membership side, do you find that you feel more confident now with what's going in your body, and you understand its effect?
I definitely do. I actually feel like I go in with more knowledge when I go in to see the naturopath. So I'm seeing a new naturopath now, and everything she suggests, I say, we need to look up how that affects estrogen. She goes, well, why? She goes, because I have an estrogen dominant illness. And I know there are a lot of things that we might not think. For example, like turmeric. They say take turmeric, and turmeric is a phytoestrogen. So just little things that we eat or we put in our bodies. So it's actually been kind of fun to go in and say, hey, I actually know this about my disease. these are the type of blood work I need you to test. I didn't mention that the reason she did the DHEA is my blood work did not come out that I had extremely high estrogen.
Yeah.
But she did not look at all of the different parts, I guess, which is what we get from your program. And there's no actual estrogen. There's 3 actual components that make it up. And if we had done that, then we would have seen. So later down the road, the next blood work, yes, it showed it. But initially it didn't, which is why the DHEA was prescribed, because, well, you don't have an estrogen problem.
Well, that's it. I think, again, medical profession are trained in a certain way. They're not trained in nutrition. Naturopaths don't understand, again, the hormonal parameters of women with endometriosis, and don't tend to look. What the program does is look at the whole of you, not a one result or a one symptom. It looks at all the different aspects together and then forms a picture. And that's where, when you and I are working together, we're working together as detectives, as Sherlock Holmes, going, right, let's look at this a bit closer, because there's always a reason why you're getting a symptom or something as you're going through the program. And I think what I've really noticed with you since the beginning of the program is your confidence level. I mean, perhaps you could share with people how you felt about coming on. I mean, just like 10 weeks ago.
I mean, I did not want to show my face. You tried to, I think we were doing the conference call or something. And yes, yes, I work with children, but I can be super outgoing with kids. But when it comes to something like this, I mean, I'm still nervous right now. Don't get me wrong. You're exposing yourself. You are. And I know this is going to be public. So, I mean, it is vulnerable. You're vulnerable, but I feel you're just more happy to share it, because you do get that confidence, and the excitement gives you that confidence, and the knowledge gives it to you. So, I mean, I want to help other women, because like I said, I thought I was doing great, and it literally hit me. I went one day fine, and the next day, suddenly.
But you were really unlucky, because you were doing great, and it was just an unfortunate thing that your naturopath didn't understand endometriosis and gave you DHEA.
Yeah, but this is even before your book. Like, so last year, it went from super active to endometriosis hit me hard. So, and that can happen to anybody, and you don't realize it. And I think it's important, as soon as you start feeling symptoms, you really start to look into it and what is causing it, what's going on. It is worth the effort on your part as a person to look out for yourself.
And what would you say to women who are considering the foundation program now? What
I would definitely recommend it. It is worth it. It's worth, if anything, having that support network. I mean, I know you even have the advanced program. So, I mean, there's a possibility you're not going to be 100% fixed at the end of the 12 weeks. But what it did for me, I mean, I think we're on week 11 now. We're almost done. And what it did for me, it gave me the tools that I didn't know to have. I wouldn't have even thought to take. I had never heard of serapeptase. I had never heard of, the protein powders and stuff, or never considered them. And
right, I think that's it. I think that's what I my aim was with the programs is I put everything in the book, literally, like put everything into the book. But the program was to give you a tool bag, a tool to give you the support network, give you multi-learning on different levels. So you'd have the webinars, the audios, you'd have the handouts, the downloads, you'd have the Facebook group, you'd have the group Q&A calls every fortnight, you'd have the one-on-ones with me. So there was that level of support, because normally people start off really well with great enthusiasm, and then they hit a wall, or life gets in the way, and then that's where they need that additional support.
Yeah. And I think that's kind of hitting the nail on the head is if I had to encourage anyone with the program, it would be, you will have moments where you will hit a wall and you will feel like it's not working, or you're going backwards. Like it's almost that saying of, it's going to get worse before it gets better. And you do go through that within the first couple of weeks. And
I like to quote that as being tested. You're being tested, as if to say, do you really want to get well? Because this program works if you work it. And I think
and that you have to push through. You have to push through.
But sometimes that's where the support comes in, and then that's where I think at least it's normally 6 to 8 weeks before people really start to see the benefits. But it's that combination of factors with one hand coming down through the layers of the onion, looking for the core of the inflammation, and then the other hand putting great seeds in to get great roots of nutrition and amino acids and vitamins and minerals. So you're feeding your body with everything it needs to heal itself whilst removing and swapping out what's causing inflammatory factors.
And you feel better. And you, like, food wise, I told you I loved food. I love fast food. I love everything. But now we actually, like, we eat so much better, and we call it fancy food because, I mean, you're having really good quality things that you would go to a restaurant and pay like $50 or whatever a plate for. And it's by no means that much when you make it at home.
No.
But you do start eating really well, and it can be really fun. It is a really fun journey once you can get past the stop focusing on your pain and stop focusing on endometriosis and focus on you getting better.
Absolutely. I think you told me a funny story about your husband as well. You know, he was a bit funny about the food to start with, and then he went out and had some horrible food and then came back and go,
yeah. Oh, yeah.
You really noticed now.
Going gluten-free and dairy-free. I'd cook him this huge meal, and 20 minutes later, he'd be starving. And that's something we learned. It's like our body is just taking in everything. Yes. So for the first little while, you're like 20 minutes and you're like, man, I just had dinner and I'm hungry again. But he hated that feeling. And he goes, I need my sugar. I need my gluten. That's what made me feel good. And I said, okay, well, there's nothing physically wrong with you. You can go back on sugar and gluten. I don't care. Thank you for being there for me, but I'm good now. You can go back. And he went out for a burger or something and came back. He goes, oh, I feel terrible. Like, I'm never eating gluten again. So he's actually away on a work trip, and he's eating all gluten-free, dairy-free, soy-free, because he says he feels so much better. And he's not the person that has an illness. So it's good for everybody.
Well, that's it. I think the program definitely has rippling effects. I know that, if families and partners get involved as well, which to help support the changes that necessary lifestyle change that needs to be made, it has rippling effects out to everybody, which is fantastic.
Yeah. And I think women have to be, when it comes to doctors, because I know the hard thing too is you start the foundation, but you still kind of have the doctor on the side. And I mean, I wouldn't say get rid of your doctor, but I think it's important. Like, what I had to do is I had to really search out a doctor that would listen. And I've been blessed now that I am working with the surgeon that did this recent surgery. She's so supportive of me taking the natural route. And she knows that my goal is to be as natural as possible. So yes, she would love me to take the medical medications if I agreed to, but she's okay that she goes, I want you to try everything for you that you feel will work for you. And I'll be here if let's say Wendy's program never ever worked, then they're there, but it works. I mean, I can't say it doesn't work. So you need to seek out people that will hear you.
And I think that's what the aim of the program is too, is to widen your community of support on the other side as well. And make sure that you have your voice, know that it's okay to say no, know that it's okay to ask questions, because again, our culture encourages people to be a good girl and be a yes girl and kind of yes doctor, whatever doctor, and feel frightened to question and ask. And obviously, when you're making that transition away from the conventional medical field and looking at natural routes, it can be a bit daunting, be a bit scary to kind of take that responsibility. But that's where, again, I encourage women, if they are having to interact with their doctors in any capacity, even if it's just from a reassurance perspective, to go, you're still there in the sidelines, aren't you? Right, I'm going to teach you what is working for my body. And it's wonderful when you get doctors and surgeons. I had a doctor who started using the same protocols and principles with people in his surgery, in his clinic, and he was emailing me and going, Wendy, this works. I'm going, I know, I've been telling you this for months,
Yeah.
So it's wonderful when they start to listen, and then if they're a good doctor or surgeon, they'll be excited for you, because the whole ethos of a doctor is to do no harm, or a surgeon is to do no harm. That's their motto. Clearly their aim is to heal you, to help you to get better, not to make you worse. So if you are getting better, I would hope a good surgeon or doctor who's supportive of your choice to take this route is happy that you're getting better, because surely that's the aim, not to keep you pumped full of drugs and painkillers and keep cutting on your body.
Yeah. I mean, and you will find the ones that are like that, but there are good ones out there, and you just have to be willing to let go of the one you have and search out, and you can. I'm sure everywhere there is somebody that you can find. But
But ultimately, it's all about not having that requirement for the surgeon,
exactly.
the
Yeah.
doctor. It's all about you knowing your body better than anybody. I don't care what they're trained in or how many
Hmm.
years they've been in the field.
Hmm.
It does not interest me one jot, because the women I work with, they know their bodies better than anybody
Hmm.
else, but they have lost contact or lost that relationship
Yeah.
with their body.
Well,
And
and
that's
prior to my downturn in June, I didn't go to a doctor for the 4 months. So it
yes.
was like, oh, I don't need to. I was going a lot before that. So yeah, and I think one of the biggest things too that you've really helped me with is learning to say no to
Yeah.
people, not just doctors, to just
Yes.
people and things in my life. Because I think I shared with you in the beginning of the program is I love to help, and I no matter how I'm feeling, I will say yes. Like we had a friend move, and I was feeling terrible, and I went and I helped them move. And I remember you saying, "What's wrong with you? Why did you do that?" And I said, I couldn't say no.
Yeah.
And it's taken me a while to get there, but it's really important to listen to your body and know when to rest, and to know to tell people, hey, I'd love to be there, but
Yeah.
I just can't right now.
Yeah.
I need to look after myself. I'm not doing well.
Yeah.
So when I'm better, then yes, I'll be there. And that's been a really big help, because I think for women, if you have kids, I mean, I don't have children, but for those who even have children, you feel like there's a lot of demand on you
Yeah.
to
Absolutely.
care for people. So yeah.
Well, I think you've had an amazing journey so far. I admired your commitment to yourself, even from starting to implement the book. And then again, just keeping moving forward, keeping being consistent and persistent, listening into your body. You've had life sort of throw
Yeah.
obstacles in your path, but you've bounced back and you're living to tell the tale, which is fantastic.
Yeah. No,
So
I'm so thankful too.
well, it's great working with people like yourself who are really committed, because the program doesn't work if people poke it with a little stick and think it's a fad, because it is a lifestyle thing. I refer to it as a new path. It is
Hmm.
a pathway that once you're on, and I mean, you can't revert back to eating rubbish, and you can't revert back to all the various stuff, because then your symptoms will return. But you can see from the photographic evidence, which is so exciting,
Yeah.
that if you do make the changes, your body responds accordingly. And
Hmm.
that's really exciting. And I
Yeah. Well,
think,
and even without photographic evidence, you were saying
yes,
that you're eating. I have cheated. And I've had, a bite of something that's got gluten, and you feel it right away. Your body starts to talk to you, and that's actually pretty neat in itself. Um,
exactly. It's having that confidence of knowing what it's saying and
yeah.
what's happened and making those connections and
Yeah.
things. Well, Lou, thank you so much for
Yeah.
coming to chat with us today. I know that lots of women will take great hope and comfort from this. And this is why I wanted, I was so pleased that you were prepared to come and chat with me, because I think people think, oh, well, it worked for Wendy, it's not going to work for me. Or it might have worked for the women on her testimonial page. She probably paid them to say that, which I didn't. The previous students as well. But I think just the very fact that you've had the HSG test, your cyst disappeared, your ovaries are better, your uterus is better, your intestines are better, and even your period. I mean, wow,
Yeah.
in amongst all of that, your period improved.
Yeah.
I felt that was something that people would want to hear, because there's a lot of people, if they're maybe even they're listening to this, in their bed or in their bath and going, oh, there's no hope. We're on these drugs with terrible side effects. I want to say that there is hope.
Hmm.
And here, Joanna is living testament, as I am, and other women. And I just want to thank you so much for taking the time out. It's been wonderful chatting to
Yeah, you're welcome. Thank you for having me.
you. No problem at all. Yeah, so thanks very much.